Hi once again. Thank you for tuning in. There's something big, in my opinion, that is emerging and drawing on people at the moment, and it's waking people up to themselves and to what they have been accepting as acceptable in politics. And if you're supporting Jeremy Corbyn, you're supporting honesty, truth, morals, personal standards, a personal power, an ability to think for yourselves. Currently, we seem to be going through a very quiet revolution, and it's the people versus the establishment. People like MP Tom Watson, of course, is one of the 171 who has asked for Jeremy Corbyn's resignation, and has been heard saying that the public can't be trusted to vote for the right things. For centuries, they've been making decisions for us, and we've been taking back some of that control right now. And the Brexit vote itself, however hard to swallow for some, I think is the beginning of the people saying no more and more to what they really understand is about control and the establishment's control over the people. The British people don't take too kindly to being told how to vote. And I think it was Obama's threats, most probably, that pushed a lot of the British people to do the complete opposite of what we were told we should do, with all the threats of being put back in the queue in regards to trade deals if we vote Brexit. And we now know that the response is that the British people did the complete opposite of that, and they voted Brexit. And many of those votes, I believe, was probably an up yours Obama. We are people who are happier to take the bull by the horns. I'm sorry. Okay. Yes, I can. I'm going to leave that in. And suffering out rather than being enforced by elitist leaders voted by others to lead their country. It was not his position to tell us what to do, and the British people just don't like being told what to do. And what's going on right now is that obviously the people in the Labour Party, these people in the hierarchy, establishment of the Labour Party, they are trying to tell us what to do. They're trying to stop us from voting. And on top of this was, of course, in regards to the Brexit thing, was the TTIP threats, which would have meant that had we remained in Europe, where the European Union was negotiating a trade agreement with the United States on behalf of the UK and other EU member countries. Had this been passed, it would not only have been the beginning of the end of the NHS, but also where it would have given US businesses a guaranteed market access to sell services in Europe and given national treatment, putting them on par with European companies. And the same goes the other way around. It would also mean that we would have to trust the USA, and this would allow firms, US firms that were allowed a stake in the English hospitals to sue under an agreement if it was nationalised. Now add to this that would mean having to trust someone like Trump if he gets in to power, or even Clinton, which is no less frightening a prospect with her record for greed. The fact remains that there was a lot of risk with the Remain vote, and so we have voted to leave. And as a democratic party, the Labour Party needs to agree that leave means leave. And I do hope that Jeremy, for him, that also means leave. I think it would. However, under Owen Smith, that won't happen. He wants another referendum. The British people have spoken and, in my opinion, made the right choice. I know I'll be slated for that opinion, as the Labour Party are a Remain party, but I for one believe that the Brexit choice was the correct one given the political climate. I note that Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, has backed Owen Smith. Thank you again, Joseph Brown, for that information and flagging that one up to me too. And I can only imagine, once again, that this is about money. London being the mayor, him being the London mayor, and London being the centre hub for the money-making elite. Writing in some over-inflated newspapers I won't mention, but I've, because I'm not here to advertise newspapers, obviously, but I've been reading some of these things in there. It says any of them or their lies, but Mr. Khan was reported to have said that Mr. Corbyn had totally failed to get his messages across in the UK's EU referendum in June. Now, why would he says actually, why would things be different in a general election? Well, Mr. Khan, you may not have noticed, but things are rapidly changing surrounding the support of Jeremy Corbyn versus the privileged few. And that is that the general public are getting behind him now. And I've read that you have said that Labour is suffering badly. Well, no, Mr. Khan, the 171 may be suffering, but then so have thousands of people under Tory austerity. There may be they have all been suffering badly for many years. Labour, true Labour, is doing great under Jeremy Corbyn, and we intend to get him back to power, and Labour back to power. So I don't understand why you don't get that. 121 MPs do not represent the thousands that are the British public. And along with them, all of the Brexit voters, which is a huge majority, as you well know, and it seems seem to not like to think about or admit. Theresa May looks like she's stalling for a Brexit. Clearly, another deceptive liar. So an agreement to give the general public what they want would actually put Labour into power. And I think you should wake up, Mr. Khan, like we are waking up, and see what a Tory government has done for so long. It's made it that the poor are the majority. And as they have been reaped from to build more ivory towers for the minority rich, who try to run this country with swaying people's minds with media and their money. That's not working anymore, is it? We're waking up to these things. Your perception of the public, where you say that Jeremy has not got their backing or trust, is absolutely off the scale of reality. Your elitists and your buddies are out of touch completely and utterly out of touch with the ordinary people. And there's more of us ordinary people than there is of the rich elite than you appear to represent, which the Labour Party is supposed to be about, isn't it? Labour is about workers, but workers have been treated so poorly that they're becoming sick, and it is they that this party is supposed to stand for. You are supposed to stand for. But not just the London rich boys who work the money market for their advantage in the centralised London hub of London. There's plenty of poverty in London. Or haven't you noticed? There's something that's becoming more and more evident, and that is that the British Brexit vote is waking us up to a fact that true left-wing socialism has never really been allowed to happen in Britain, and we're crying out for that. We really do want this to happen. And I really think that these things do happen for a reason. With common sense, you should be concluding by now that those who have established New Labour, the 121 Labour MPs who are now asking for Jeremy Corbyn's resignation, it's clear that they are not socialists. They have abstained on austerity. They have voted for dropping bombs in Syria. They are capitalists in disguise, wearing a red rosette. Their political agenda is no different from Theresa May and her Tory government policies. They're people who prioritise bankers, people who continue to inflict debt and poverty upon the entire nation with extortionate interest rates. They're happy to keep the status quo, everything privately owned. Just look at the state of our rail service, privately owned, unrealistic, extortionate fees that the public service, the people are using, and we're looking for something different. These people are in total, utter despair. In terms of a war, the reality of war is that there has never been a time in British history that a government has not used military action. The only time non-military action has actually been passed is when a pro-war motion has been voted against by the whole House, and most of these times Britain has actually already been active in war before the motions have even been considered in Parliament. British troops were active in Syria and were also active training foreign allies to operate the weapons we have sold in Saudi Arabia. Policy should be required when conducting plans for mass murder in the Middle East. Also, issues on welfare, who are disabled or the carers and those who have mental health issues because of the wicked rates of pay or lack of work or terrible housing conditions, unable to feed their families, making them even more sick. So they're out of work through no fault of their own. And they've got more additional abuse from the media agenda, demonising those people as if they're the problem with the UK economy. And as I've said before, these people are the least likely to affect the economy in a negative way, as they live hand to mouth and their welfare money goes straight back into the economy, unlike those who invest overseas or keep their gold bars in untouchable tax-dodging Swiss accounts. All this whilst there are people in the world starving. And then also there's the migrants, particularly Muslims, being called out as terrorists and threats by the media, causing hatred towards victims and causing hatred for our fellow man. The mainstream media are there to teach you to hate one another. Hitler used the same medium to brainwash Nazi Germany. He ensured that every German home had access to a radio and ensured that children were taught in schools hatred. It's the very same sick agenda, and we need to wake up to it now and get a grip on this reality. Terrorism is effective in doing what its name says, inspiring profound fear. We wonder why it is really, we wonder if it really is the terrorists causing most of this fear, or is it the media attention towards it and the government's agenda to keep you in fear? For instance, whilst the Paris attacks left some 130 people dead, roughly 3 times that number of French citizens died on that same day from cancer. An individual's likelihood of being hurt or killed by a terrorist, whether an Islamic radical or some other variety, is negligible. Meanwhile, in the time that it's taken for you to sit and listen to this video until this point, at least one person has died from a heart attack. Within the hour, a fellow citizen of the UK will have died from skin cancer. Roughly 5 minutes after that, a military veteran will have committed suicide. And by the time you turn off the lights to sleep this evening, somewhere around 100 people will have died throughout the day in road traffic accidents. The equivalent of a plane full of people crashing, killing everyone on board. Every single day. No one today will die from ISIS. What accounts for the fear that terrorism inspires, considering that its actual risk is so low? We need to ask this question. The answer lies in basic human psychology and how the media portrays it and plays that out in their articles that you're reading. So that you keep believing that you need the governments that you elect to protect you with big bombs and weapons of mass destruction. They need to convince you that they are effective in keeping you safe by becoming more and more right-wing. It's becoming more and more evident New Labour were no longer, if they ever have been, centre-left. Hilary Benn, Owen Smith, Tom Watson, Angela Eagle are not what they want you to think that they are. In an agreement with Jeremy Corbyn, as Owen Smith keeps repeating, I agree with Jeremy, whilst teaching us that it's only that we need a different face. It's become absolutely ridiculous that we are actually listening to these people's voices, and we all know in our own hearts and minds that these people are liars. No, we don't want a different face. We want the same face, and we want the same policies that Jeremy is telling us that are providing, is showing us that this country needs. We're in agreement with what he's saying. Owen Smith is actually pretending he's in agreement with what he's saying because he knows that that's going to win votes. He is a liar. We, the people, don't trust you, Owen Smith. None of you 171 we see most probably are brainwashed by the higher elite. And you are puppets of the left wing, turning the right wing rather, turning the Labour Party into a carbon copy of the right wing government. And these are not socialists. They're not even centre left wing. They're either right wing infiltrators, certainly traitors, of which Owen Smith is certainly one, or they've been brainwashed by those individuals and are so weak to be in power. They shouldn't be there. They've clearly been manipulated by those others, so blinded that they can't see the wood for the trees, believing the lies that they too are being taught to believe in, self-protecting themselves and their jobs. It makes you wonder if Owen Smith has a watch to hypnotise them all, doesn't it? But it doesn't work on people, and he needs to convince us, but we're no longer being convinced. So his methods are not working. His methods aren't working. And it would be funny. It would be funny if it wasn't so serious, wouldn't it? I hope that they wake up to themselves very soon. And on the other hand, the people that support Jeremy Corbyn are people with morals, critical thinkers that will not be duped by this commercial method, and they're intelligent people that are standing up for themselves, their families, morality, and everyone's future. It's time to turn away from war and the greed these elitists stand for and require for them to remain rich, and the poorest remain that way, slowly dying without recognition for their lives. A book that's a good read was originally printed in 1953, War is a Racket. It's about the interventionist speech of the most decorated soldier in American history, a man twice awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor, who was to be made the fascist American leader in 1932 coup d'etat. Instead, he exposed the attempt with an impressive plain-speaking speech, one that has proven to be popular, whatever side of the fence you sit on. Some quotes from that book go like this. War is a racket. A racket is best described, I believe, as something that is not what it seems to the majority of people. Only a small inside group knows what it's about, and it's conducted for the benefit of the very few at the expense of the masses. Another one, the trouble with America is that when the dollar only earns 6% over here, it gets restless and goes overseas to get 100%. Then the flag follows the dollar and the soldiers follow the flag. I spent 30 years and 4 months in active military service as a member of this country's most agile military force, the Marine Corps. I served in all commissioned ranks from second lieutenant to major. I helped purify Nicaragua for the International Banking House of Brown Brothers in 1909 to 1912. I brought light to the Dominican Republic for American sugar interests in 1916. In China, I helped to see it that Standard Oil went its way unmolested. I served in all commissioned ranks from a second lieutenant to major general, and during that time I spent most of my time being a high-class muscle man for big business, for Wall Street and for the bankers. In short, I was a racketeer for capitalism. There are only two things we should fight for. One is the defense of our homes and the other is the Bill of Rights. I helped make Mexico, especially Tampico, safer for American oil interests in 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the national city bank boys to collect revenues in. Now, does that ring true for what's going on right now as well? War is a racket. It has always been. A few profit and the many pay. But there is a way to stop it, and you can't end it by disarmament conferences. You can't eliminate it by peace parleys at Geneva. Well-meaning but impractical groups can't wipe it out by resolutions. It can be smashed effectively only by taking the profit out of war. I believe in adequate defence at the coastline and nothing else. Now here, Jeremy Corbyn has been talking about taking the money, stop selling these arms to out there, take the profit out of war, and then it will stop. If they've not got the arms to do these things, it can't happen, can it? We must permit the youth of the land who would bear arms to decide whether or not there should be war. We must take the profit out of war, he repeats that. The normal profits of a business concern in the United States are 6, 8, 10, and sometimes 12%, but wartime profits that's another matter, 20, 60, 100, 300, and even 1800%. The sky is the limit. My mental faculties remain in suspended animation while I obeyed the orders of the higher-ups. This is typical with everyone in the military. Out-of-war nations acquire additional territory. If they are victorious, they must take it. This newly acquired territory promptly is exploited by the few. The self-same few who wrung dollars out of blood in the war. The general public shoulders the bill. Now, bearing all this in mind and in light of Chilcot, we must now look into what we have been doing globally and historically and what we have been accepting as acceptable politics. I like to think that everything happens for a reason. I will keep saying that. And as the good general says, behind the scenes, somewhere, someone knows what this is all about. And as George Galloway was expelled from the Labour Party for speaking the truth before and after the Iraq War, he rightly said he was being singled out for punishment for voicing legitimate options shared by many in the party, including former cabinet members Robin Cook and Claire Short. He said he was deeply sad to leave the party. He joined age 13 and said the Labour Party would rue the day it expelled him. Well, in my opinion, he's right now, because that is absolutely right. They do rue the day. And some George Galloway quotes go like this: Tony Blair will be remembered for nothing other than what he has followed, that he's followed George Bush over a cliff, took the rest with him, and we haven't yet reached the bottom, I'm afraid. There are those who wrap themselves in flags and blow the tinny trumpet of patriotism as a means of fooling the people. I am an opponent of Saddam Hussein, but an opponent also of the sanctions that have killed a million Iraqi children, and an opponent of the United States' apparent desire to plunge the Middle East into a new and devastating war. I think that both men, Bush and Blair, will be damned in history. Both men have made their respective countries the most hated countries in the world. Amen to that. And he goes on, well, I think that we can add Cameron. No, that's me. Well, I think we can add Cameron to that list where he's selling arms in Iraq. So there's my notes. So I've added that. We should add David Cameron to this list of people that are most hated, because he has been selling arms to the Gulf too. And some more on George Galloway. I was an opponent of Saddam Hussein when the British and American governments and businessmen were selling him guns and gas. Well, clearly this is still happening, isn't it? And the only moral question when suicide bombing is who the target is. And in that sense, the suicide bomber is no different from the stealth bomber or the cruise missile. If it's targeted at civilian people, then it is morally wrong, whether done by Bush, Blair, or a suicide bomber. Absolutely right. Bush and Blair and the Prime Minister of Japan and Belarusi these people are criminals, and they are responsible for mass murder in the world, for the war and for the occupation, through their support of Israel and through their support of a globalized capitalist economic system, which is the biggest killer in the world that the world has ever known. He goes on and says, I've met Saddam Hussein exactly the same number of times as Donald Rumsfeld met him. And the difference is that Donald Rumsfeld met him to sell him guns and gave him maps, the better to target those guns. I care about public perception. Yes, I don't care about my enemies' perceptions. The big tyrants never face justice. Now that is one big truth. Now this one resonates with me strongly, where I've seen thousands of parents having children removed because they, as parents, don't get along. The law system makes money on the innocent and not the true criminals. And I mean criminals on the grandest scale, like this one. Now, these are my words right now. The UK and the USA have been led by war criminals. We have accepted war criminals as our leaders, and we have to stop accepting war criminals as our leaders. Theresa May, no doubt, is continuing their legacy of arms deals to Saudi Arabia and the Gulf. Hilary Benn and the rest of the 171 MPs who oppose all of this hell want it to continue, are wishing for the status quo, things to stay the same, for this country to profit from war, to continue selling arms to those we are at war with, then sending soldiers out there to die with our ammunition. I call for the reinstatement of George Galloway to the Labour Party, and I am aware of some of his less wise comments, but still there's nothing compared to the wickedness that our leaders, where we've waved our little flags and continued to fight for with their politics, which have killed and left human beings disabled for life. We call for change now and voting for men who will not continue this madness and will not use the sale of arms for the use of arms to be a profit making a scheme, but one of defence as it should be. And we demand the change has to come from putting the right people in the position of power to dissolve this wickedness that has been going on for far too long. Yes, it's going to hurt those blinded by power and greed that has been going on for far, far too long. And that's caused more to have been blinded by our politics and our greed, and then also caused more blindness. And it's disgraceful that the Labour Party has penalised George Galloway whilst giving Tony Blair a standing ovation, because that did not reflect the British public's views. You see, this has been going on for years, and now it's time to turn this around and put this right by voting the right man to power now, and stop doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And thank you for all your amazing comments. I know there's a few trolls that are there saying a few things, and if anyone wants to report them, that's fine, but I can't see a lot of them because I've blocked them now. But please do keep your comments coming in and suggestions. Thank you, Joseph. And cheers. Bye for now. Hello, beautiful.